we're going to be starting on our Factory 5 Racing Roadster, and the first thing we do once the kit arrives, obviously we take an inventory of all the parts. There are about 14 boxes of parts that show up with the kit. They do send an itemized list, which makes it really easy and it's pretty quick. Go through the boxes, make sure we have everything we need. We then remove the bodywork and the loosely fit aluminum that they ship the kit with. Now, most of the changes that we do make to the frame are minor little details on their own, but together, once you put all of those changes together, it makes just for a refined and nicer finished product. And even though this comes straight out of the box as a pretty nice piece, there's always a little room for improvement. And we just make little subtle changes so that we can add more comfortable features such as power brakes, maybe taking this dash brace, moving it forward an inch so that the lights don't glare into the windshield at night. Simple little things like that. Require a little bit of cutting, a little bit of welding, a couple of hours of work, makes for a really nice finished product. As you can see, we now have the frame in the heavy work area of the shop, and I've flipped it over so that we can do the work on the bottom of it first. First is in strategic areas on the frame, we've drilled 1/4-inch holes and tapped them, 1/4-20, so that we can put plugs in them. And these are weep holes so that at service time, when we do oil changes and maintenance on the vehicle when it's finished, we'll be able to remove those plugs and let any moisture out that may be accumulating in the tubes due to condensation. Now, the next thing we've done, moving over to the front of the frame, is we removed these tow hooks, and we now have a clean, smooth surface here so that we can fabricate the mounts for the front adjustable sway bar. Once we have the sway bar brackets complete, we'll refabricate 2 new tow hooks for the front and also install a pair of them on the rear to facilitate loading the car and tying it down into a trailer, or if you'd ever need to pull it with a winch or a tow strap, it'll be convenient and easy to reach under the car. Here's our modified driver's side taper now in the floor, where we go from the seating area down to where your feet will sit. We've put this 45-degree piece, welded this piece in at a 45-degree angle so that the slope of the floor is smooth and the transition is more natural to like a production car versus the square tube that Factory 5 uses. It comes standard with the kit. Well, I've moved our frame back down into the cleaner section of the shop, and we have most of the fabrication and welding to the frame completed. The only items that at this point have not been installed would be the drive shaft loop that we're planning on doing, front sway bar mounts, and a few of the tabs for the brake lines and fuel lines. We're going to wait off to do those until we install the actual components so that we have all of our clearances set right and everything's exactly where we need it to be. Today, we'll be taking a step away from the frame to address one of the few donor parts that we're using on this project. Okay, this is our rear subframe that we've got from a donor car. I believe it was a 95 Lincoln Mark 8. We'll also be using the rear suspension uprights. We'll be putting new bushings in those, new wheel bearings, refurbishing, blasting and plating and painting everything so it looks good. New brake discs, obviously, pads, high performance pads. We'll either rebuild these brake calipers, powder paint them and completely go through them, or just replace them altogether. But it's nice to have the ones off the donor car so you can use them as cores if you are going to trade those in and get replacement ones. Once you separate the pieces you need from the Lincoln subframe, this is what you should have left. Now, these things look a little grungy right now, but again, we're going to clean everything up and refurbish it. The center section will be getting a Torsen posi traction differential. We'll be changing the gear ratio from the 308 that's in it now probably to a more performance-oriented ratio like a 355. The axles we'll keep and possibly trade in and get credit for them as cores so that we can get new CV joints when we rebuild the rear suspension with the shortened axles from Factory 5. And of course we'll be putting new bushings in those uprights, a performance type bushing with new bearings and re-drilled hubs with the proper bolt pattern so that they'll fit our pin drive type wheels. Okay, the frame has now been returned from the powder coaters. We've had it done in a satin black. So we're ready to start with our final assembly on the frame. And also, the body has been finished. It's in a Mercedes-Benz silver. And as we put the car together, we'll go over some of the details of the modifications that have been done to the body of the car. All right, let's go over some of the progress we've made here on the first day of assembly. First thing I like to do, get it out of the way because it's a big and bulky piece, is go ahead and get the differential mounted into the frame. We use solid mounts on the independent rear suspension differentials because the rear cover is solid mounted, and don't want to have rubber in the front and solid in the back. With the forces generated, you could end up stress cracking something. It's always better to go ahead and run full solid. The shortened axles have been installed for the pin drive, and we're using a silicone type boot instead of a rubber boot. This is a little bit superior quality replacement, so I go ahead and use those on these. As we move outboard, you can see the rear suspension has been loosely hung. I have not yet installed the pin drive adapters for the wheels because there's a special Ford nut that tightens the axle to the hub, and it'll be Loctited and torqued to its proper spec before we can put the pin drive adapter on. The rear brake line, the hard line, has been run to the front of the car. Here we see the installation of the rear sway bar going in, and our Ford Mustang fuel tank with the plastic Mustang cover and standard straps for a Fox body Mustang. One modification we do to the fuel tank is a little dent in this corner, clearance for the rear sway bar. Then another nice feature I like to add is this oversized vent, so it helps to speed the process when you go to the filling station and fuel the car up. It also has a check ball that's built in case you flip the car over on the racetrack or something to keep you from spilling all the fuel out of the vent. We'll be running plastic fuel lines just like all the OEs use nowadays. Minimal amount of connections, so not many places for it to leak. And we're using a stock Ford style fuel filter that can be bought at any auto parts store. Should be easy to service and inexpensive also.